Live everywhere.
Daily Co's Radio on netrootsradio.com presents
David Walton. Kagro in the Morning Show. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Wednesday, April 19th, 2017. I think I'll do a show. I probably should. I told everybody I was going to, and if I don't, then Greg and Joan will be wandering around all morning wondering what to do, so why don't we go ahead with it regardless. My back is killing me today. Somebody come over here and fix this thing. Anybody a chiropractor? Actually, I don't want anybody touching the back today. I've had a recurring issue here since it's been a while. Remember when we had all that trouble delivering all that mulch? Well, that put a pretty serious strain on everything the day I worked so hard in the mulch yard. But I believe I encountered a new problem this year. It usually does, and there's usually a few days of soreness to follow. This time, though, I think I tore something, and I didn't realize that I had done that until about a week afterwards, and I said, hey, this pain isn't going away, and I think I've been treating this improperly. I've been stretching, trying to work out the kinks in the back, but I think it has only made things worse. And then I spent a week resting, and it got better. So I thought, great, fantastic, I'm doing the right thing. And then I thought yesterday, hey, I'm fine, and I was just working around the house, dragging the big, heavy vacuum cleaner all over the place, and bending and stretching and picking up all the stuff around the house and trying to neaten things up. And then, wow, all of a sudden when I was done, everything was, it was like the day after the mulch delivery. So I'm back to square one, this time with some ice packs on the back. And, not all that happy about having to live in Trump's administration with discomfort on top of it all. It's not the worst thing that could happen under any Bush administration, of course, but it's making me cranky. So why don't we turn to the show and try and distract myself from the personal issues of the day. None of the rest of you feel this anyway. Look, Bill in Portland, Maine, just as though nothing was going on, as if he had no idea that I was suffering with back pain. He simply tells everybody Daily Coast Radio is live, and now I have to go. Kagro X, that's me, David Waldman. Dem from Connecticut, that's Greg Dworkin, if you want to reach him via Twitter. And, of course, Joan McCarter, who you may know from Twitter as Joan McCarter. All will be here today to show off the aircraft carrier that we found behind the 7-Eleven. Donald Trump lost it yesterday. Donald Trump lost it a long time ago, is what I guess I should say. But he lost the aircraft carrier. Yesterday's big event was the news that the armada, as he put it, that he had told the world he had dispatched to the Korean Peninsula to send a message to the North Koreans in the middle of all of their military posturing. It turns out that this was all news to the folks on the aircraft carrier. He said he sent the Carl Vinson battle group to the Korean Peninsula, again, to send a message to the North Koreans. And on Monday, apparently, the USS Carl Vinson found out that they were supposed to be in Korea. They were sailing through Indonesia on their way to exercises in the Indian Ocean with the Australian Navy, apparently, and were some 3,500 miles, what did they say, southeast, I guess? Or was it south? What's the direction? It would be southeast, wouldn't it, of the Korean Peninsula. And I don't know whether, now I'm still not clear whether they turned around finding out that the commander-in-chief thought that they were in Korea, or whether they said, nah, we're busy, you're going to have to send somebody else, I'll have to catch up on the news with that one. But how do you like that? No idea where the battle group is, I guess. Could be behind the 7-Eleven, as Bill suggests. Might as well be. And, if you thought that it was just a funny joke that Donald Trump couldn't find North Korea on a map, apparently he can't. And he has no idea how to get anybody else to find it on a map either. I really would love to know where this came from, this idea. And there was some sort of explanation offered that there was miscommunication. I guess the most charitable interpretation they could give was that there was miscommunication between the Navy and the White House as to who was where and what they were doing. But leave it to Donald Trump to magnify the problem by swearing to everybody that I sent an armada. I personally, turned this ship around. I stationed them there. I'm the commander-in-chief. And they weren't there, and they weren't heading there. But I guess he thought that they were heading there, but they were probably heading there already under some, or he thought they were there under some other order, and then he was going to just grab some credit for it. We'll have to catch up on exactly how this stupid story started, but it's just an embarrassment, and it's got to make the Koreans, both North and South, think twice. Maybe that's the plan. Oh, I'm going to be so crazy, they're never going to be able to understand. They're not going to know. I'm unpredictable. What direction am I coming from next? Am I sending troops? Am I sending a battle carrier, an aircraft carrier in a battle group? Am I doing nothing? Am I bombing you? Am I not bombing you? Do I own this building? Do I not own this building? Am I paying myself out of my inauguration funds that are left over? Another story we can discuss. The misdirection thing's getting old. I don't know. Well, so is Trump, so I guess that's appropriate. Anyway, let's catch up on the headlines with Greg Dworkin, who is here, not in Korea, not in Indonesia. He's in Connecticut where he belongs, just where I left him.
On my way to Australia.
Right.
And who are you to say I'm not?
Who am I? That's a good question. Let's see if we can address that. I'm somebody who's interested in the news. Do you have any? How about that?
About that.
Catch me outside.
Do you know who Carl Vinson is?
I do. Now,
you do.
You sent me a Wikipedia entry on not the ship, but the
guy who it was named for. Yeah, I just thought it was pretty interesting.
It is interesting.
We'll get to the runoff in Georgia and all of that, but a couple of things about this.
Way. Yes.
First of all, what kind of thinking suggests to you that if I lie to the American people, particularly my own voters, because nobody else believes me anyway, and there's data to show that with polling,
okay.
that if I lie to my own voters about where this battle group is, somehow China won't know.
Yes.
And somehow they won't tell North Korea. And therefore it'll work because we'll scare the bejeebers out of them because they have no idea where the Carl Vinson battle group really is. I'll keep them guessing.
It's an invisible. What you don't know about Carl Vinson was he himself was invisible. And Carl Vinson, by the way, the author of The Invisible Man, as it turns out. I read this in the Wikipedia. I did not know that. I thought somebody else entirely. Well, no, he's not. We can find out exactly who he is. But, yeah, the whole world can see an aircraft carrier. They know. I mean, you don't think the North Koreans immediately said, let's look for this?
Right. And even if they didn't have the capability, China does.
Yeah. Well, they told us they had the capability. I mean, they promised us they had a Navy complete with ballistic missile-capable submarines, although it occurs to me that you can just build a submarine-launched missile and not a submarine.
Yeah, and just launch it from your backyard.
Right.
And maybe it'll blow up. I don't know. But Carl Vinson was born in 1883.
Son of a sharecropper.
Died in 1981.
Oh.
U.S. Representative from Georgia, Democrat, served for more than 50 years in the House, and was known as the father of the two-ocean Navy, which is why he got this aircraft carrier named after him. He was the longest-serving member ever of the United States House of Representatives in the state of Georgia, and back in the 30s, before World War II, he was responsible for pushing emergency appropriations to rebuild the U.S. Navy because Japan and the U.S. were kind of on a path to confront each other. So that's Carl Vinson, and that's why there's a battle group named after him, the ship, the aircraft carrier.
USS Carl Vinson.
Right.
Not an admiral.
Not an admiral, exactly.
Probably not the son of a sharecropper.
And not a state. There's a lot of ships named after states,
The battleships. Yeah, right. They have there's a whole protocol for naming ships. I'm not sure what kind of, like, say, the SS Minnow was, but it's very famous, and they're going to Korea, too.
Yeah, but
about 3 hours
that's probably who he sent to Korea. Of course, they didn't get very far, because the Minnow has this big hole, in the hull.
Yes, we launch missiles through it. So,
but Gilligan and the crew, will take care of North Korea in the way that this needs to be done. And then if that doesn't work, they can always send McHale's Navy.
Yeah, that's another Navy we have. Everyone has forgotten about that. Don't sleep on McHale's Navy.
Anyway, so the whole idea that he was trying to fool them is kind of dumb. But then again, as people said about the Nixon administration, these weren't the smartest guys in the world. So, we'll see. So last night, All day yesterday, but we got the results last night. There was a special election in Georgia, and as we talked about on the show on Monday, Georgia. It would be a little bit beyond expectations to expect that John Ossoff actually got more than 50%, but he came awfully close. I think he got 48.1%. And the polling just before the election, and polling in a district is not always easy, it was something like 43. So he not only beat expectations for comparing it to polling, but he did quite well in a district that basically I don't think has gone Democratic in like forever. So there's some pieces on that. For example, Jason Sattler, LOL GOP, has a piece in USA Today. The real winner in Georgia's special House election is the Democratic strategy of nationalizing midterm elections in Republican districts to capitalize on President Trump's historic unpopularity. John Ossoff took just over 48% of the vote, nearly equaling the top 4 Republicans in the crowded jungle primary, to replace Tom Price in the Atlanta area 6th congressional district. This makes him the first Democratic House candidate to break 40% in the district this century.
Really?
So that's pretty good.
I just found out something, by the way. From 1933 to 1965, I'm going to give you one guess at the district represented by Carl Vinson.
Was it the 6th?
Yes.
Cool. There's our tie-in.
Saw
right?
that, yeah.
I'm going to pretend I knew that when I brought that up.
Also, by the way, Sam Nunn was his nephew or grandnephew. I saw in that too, by the way, of trivia. Mm-hmm. So basically, he ran Georgia for a long time.
I thought you might enjoy that article, and you hear the name, and I just thought it's always nice to go back and look and see what it is.
It's Vincent.
Yep. Anyway, so we have that. This is Inside the Numbers from NBC, from their first read section. Inside the Numbers, the Georgia election is still a boost for Dems. I'm mentioning this because there'll be people, just like in Kansas, who were disappointed that the Democrat didn't win, but you have to put the achievement of what they did in proper perspective. The headline from last night's high-profile special congressional election in Georgia was that Democrat John Ossoff fell just short of the 50% needed to avoid a runoff, and he now faces a clash against Republican Karen Handel. Remember Karen Handel? She's from Planned Parenthood.
Ah, yes.
Right. But there's, before she got fired there, there's arguably a much bigger story.
It's a Susan Komen fund.
Yeah.
And she was the one who encouraged them to drop.
Susan Komen, sorry.
Yes, right. Well, we don't want to pretend.
I misspoke. Now I'm not allowed on the show anymore.
Yeah, you said clip. Get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. But there's arguably a much bigger story about last night. In the first 2 special congressional elections of the Trump era, because Planned Parenthood would never hire her. They would have nothing to do with her. In the first 2 special congressional elections of the Trump era, Democratic candidates are performing 10 to 20 points better than they did in 2016. Last night in Georgia, Ossoff grabbed 48% of the vote in the 18-candidate field, which is 10 points better than what the Democratic congressional candidate got against incumbent Republican Tom Price in the 2016 general election.
Ah, okay.
16 points higher than what another Dem nominee received in the district last November. Now, some important caveats. In 2016, you had well-known and well-financed incumbents like Price and Mike Pompeo running against also-rans. So the recent special congressional elections are bound to be closer than what we saw. Even so, the Democratic candidates in the last 2 weeks outperformed Hillary Clinton's 46.8 in Georgia 6 and 33% in Kansas 4, which all point to a big enthusiasm advantage.
Oh, enthusiasm, dang. Yeah, so it's around here somewhere.
Yeah, you go find it.
Oh, help. Okay. Well,
I'll
just
enthusiasm advantage Democrats enjoy right now. And remember, I'm on the show tomorrow. We're going to be talking about enthusiasm. So you have that ready.
There it is.
There it is. The question is, can they sustain it for the June 20th runoff in Georgia? Well, let me tell you, all those people at Daily Kos didn't work hard on this and on Kansas and throw time, money, enthusiasm, and all this other stuff.
Enthusiasms.
They just say, okay, we're done. Now we're going to walk away. So yeah, they can sustain it.
Yes, and they damn well better. I insist that we do. This was an amazing thing to see the storylines emerging, even last night. Of course, Trump, I think, didn't go to sleep without tweeting, claiming victory. Huge victory in Georgia 6th. They're not out of it, the Republicans. And I helped by getting us to a runoff where it once looked like we would hold this seat forever.
Right. So, it was funny. Somebody tweeted the observation that if Ossoff had gotten 50%, that Trump would have tweeted that it was the Republican Party's fault. And if Ossoff got 49%, he would have said, see, I won.
Pretty much. 48% sometimes, yeah, it was. I know it was difficult for him to follow. But he won, Trump did, with less than that, as a matter of fact. So he should be familiar with the idea of getting considerably less than 50% and still winning. 48% went to Hillary Clinton. She lost. Maybe that's why he's confused.
There was a great flowchart somebody put up also of how Trump thinks. If you follow one path, it says, it didn't go well, and the answer is it was somebody else's fault. And then the other side of the flowchart says it went well, and then Trump says, well, that was me.
Yes, right. Exactly how it would work.
So it's easy to figure out what's going on here. Anyway, as First Read points out, on June 20th, the Ossoff-Handel runoff is going to be very competitive. It's basically a toss-up.
Yes.
Okay? And just to give you an idea, Ossoff got 48.1%, and the top 4 GOP candidates got 48.2%.
All together.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, can you assume that every single one of the people who voted for Ossoff will vote for him in June? Pretty much, yes.
Yeah, that's very likely, I would say.
Can you assume that each one of the people who voted for one of the other candidates besides Karen Handel, who got 20%, will vote for her? And the answer is no.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't either. They voted for other people the first time.
But because it's a special election this time, turnout's going to be higher. Maybe. Maybe it'll be higher in the runoff. Maybe. And since it's a predominantly Republican district, you'd think that a little bit higher turnout would benefit Republicans, except they have this enthusiasm gap. So the bottom line is all the neutral prognosticators, be it Cook Report or Larry Sabato's shop over, at Crystal Ball, basically everybody says it's a toss-up. That's a pretty good position for a Democrat to be in a district that basically is a Republican conservative suburban district.
Yeah, I'll take it. Huge loss. Obviously.
Now, what does that mean for November 2018? The answer, of course, is nobody knows, but that's not going to stop people from writing about it. That's not even going to stop us from talking about it. So I have a nice Ron Brownstein article from The Atlantic. Always like following him.
Okay. Let me see if I can find that in our list. Oh, The Atlantic. Okay.
The districts where Democrats might find the next Georgia 6. You have that one?
That should be the first one. Yes. Oh, no? Is that...
I'm
there we
go.
Yeah.
I'm going to put... You got it?
It's just a big picture. I had to scroll down to find that headline.
Yeah.
Huge picture.
Well, I just threw it in at the bottom anyway.
Okay.
So there are dozens of congressional seats nationwide that share similarities with this conservative area near Atlanta, where a special election scheduled for Tuesday has been unusually competitive. And let's just emphasize the unusually competitive. It's usually not. And so for us to get 48%, yes, it's a big deal.
Yes.
Let's see. In recent weeks, the race to replace Price has transfixed the political world. But, the reason is why. And the answer is it crystallizes 2 electoral trends that could decide the struggle for the House in the 2018 midterm election.
All right. I could get with that.
Centered on white-collar communities in the northern Atlanta suburbs, the district is one of 48 Republican-held House seats that share 2 key characteristics that could potentially boost Democrats. One, it has a greater share of college-educated whites than the national average of 34.2%.
Uh-huh.
And remember, Ron Brownstein's thing is looking at college-educated whites versus non-college-educated whites. He picked up on that very, very early. I was able to point to that as a key trend. Second, Trump performed worse in the district than Romney did. These similar districts, the ones that could produce the next Georgia 6, are portrayed in a chart below. Can't see the chart on radio.
I can tell you about it. Dots and such.
It compares share of college-educated whites to Romney's advantage over Trump in percentage points. And Georgia 6 was right up there. But there are others, including Texas 7 with John Culberson, Florida 27 with Ileana Ross Lehtinen, and Virginia 10 with Barbara Comstock. Those are the kinds of areas that potentially would be Democratic pickups.
Okay.
Heavily white-collar districts that were cool to Trump aren't the only seats Democrats will contest next year, and that's also part of the message. Contest them. Don't just give up and walk away. They're also targeting less urban and more blue-collar seats, including a few in upstate New York, and Democrats are not planning to challenge all of the 48 GOP-held seats that share the two key characteristics that list several suburban seats in Texas, as well as South Carolina, Arizona, and Georgia, that lean even more strongly Republican than Price's former district. But with national polls consistently showing Trump's job approval rating sagging below 40 among whites with at least a four-year college degree, sometimes as low as 35% with them, white-collar districts such as Georgia 6 have grown central to Democratic hopes of recapturing the House. And again, stepping back from that's the strategy, I don't know if we can retake the House or not, but I think making a big dent and getting rid of the large Republican majority in the House right now can only help.
Well, yes.
It might force them to actually try to negotiate and get things done. They have to do that now. They still are so fractured they can't do anything without Democratic votes, which we're going to find out when we look to shut the government down and try to actually pass anything. It's not like they're getting anything done there. The major things that Trump has done have been either with nominations like Jeff Sessions or with executive stuff, but it's not like the House is producing a tremendous amount of reliable legislation that's changing the course of the country. In fact, Josh Barro and Seth Maskett both had this same theme from yesterday. Barro, of course, is a political writer, and Seth Maskett is a political scientist, but they both wrote about how basically this is the do-nothing Trump administration, that if you look at the first 100 days, they've practically done nothing.
Well, yes. It's more than practically nothing. It is nothing.
Well,
Right.
they got a Supreme Court guy through, and they did get Sessions in a justice to change things. So it's not like nothing has been done, but nothing has been done legislatively.
Right. Well, yes, that's true. And, I guess you can't really necessarily say absolutely nothing, and you shouldn't sleep on it, obviously. But, yeah, other than getting his cabinet in place and this Supreme Court pick, it's nothing that you could mark down as an accomplishment. It's like, well, basic things. Okay, you've been elected president. Who would you like to be in your cabinet? Okay.
Right. I just threw in the last piece there at the very bottom so you can find it. It's called Trump's Poor Legislative Scorecard. We're nearing the 100-day mark, and this president has little to show for his time in office.
Yes, now that's Congress's responsibility, but still.
Yeah, well, Congress, is totally screwed up, so that's really part of the point. Oh. So I think that's worth emphasizing. And then one more thing I just want to get in here just to make sure that we don't lose sight of it, because it's awfully interesting, just awful. Awfully interesting. And that is that Fox is preparing to cut ties with Bill O'Reilly, says the Wall Street Journal.
That is awfully interesting.
Popular host has been implicated in a sexual harassment scandal.
Again.
And The Hill has a poll that says nearly half think Fox News should cancel O'Reilly's show. Now, he's on vacation, and it turns out he may not come back. The poll happens to be from Morning Consult, which is interesting because it leans conservative. And they found that 46% think the network should cancel the O'Reilly factor, and 22% think that Fox should keep the guy.
Okay.
Advertisers are bailing.
Yes.
And, it's all good.
Yeah, I'll take it. I mean, I understand that he spent yesterday telling everybody this was a horrible smear campaign against him, but nobody could be better targeted by a smear campaign.
He knows some smear campaigns.
Yeah.
He would know one when he sees one.
Right. They should have somebody follow him around on his vacation.
That's what he said, right? I know a smear campaign when I see one.
Yeah, exactly. I practically invented the smear campaign. Don't smear a smearer. Well, right. Why not?
So we have that, and again, I just thought that was absolutely worth focusing on. We should hear in the next few days as to what's happening there. And then finally, I have a little interactive for you here, your viewers and listeners.
Okay,
it's from the New York Times Upshot. So even if you don't have a subscription to the New York Times the way David does,
yes,
and I do, you can look at it, and it's called "You Draw It."
Okay.
Just how bad is the drug overdose epidemic? And what they do is they give you some statistics up through about 1990. And you have to literally, click your mouse and draw in what you think is going to be the line for how it's going to go from 1990 to 2015. Since 1990, the number of Americans who have died every year from car accidents, up or down, you actually get to draw the line and then compare it to what the real number is.
Okay. I didn't do very well.
Try it.
I did.
And? Were you right?
No. I mean, I went down, but not... I said nobody died.
Next one. Guns.
Okay. Guns.
Since 1990, the number of Americans who have died every year from guns, from 1990 until now, up or down, draw it in, and see how you did.
Okay. How about that number? Yeah, pretty close.
Actually, it's about the same.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was going to say everybody's dead. The whole world got killed.
Dead. Since 1990, the number of Americans who have died every year from HIV...
Oh, I don't know this number.
Up or down. Well, actually, it peaked, and so it should go down.
Okay.
So try drawing that in.
I think I overdid it.
Okay. It spiked and then plummeted.
Yes. Oh, well, I drew that there were... Well, I didn't mean to draw that there were 11,880, but that's where I ended.
Okay.
So good news, it's less than that.
Okay.
6,465.
Well, let's talk numbers. So HIV in 2015, when they're doing this, is 6,465 deaths. Guns is 35,763. Car accidents has surpassed guns, but that's going to flip at some point because car accidents are going down. 37,757. So 37,000 deaths.
Yes.
Per
state
year.
by state, I think we're at about 15 states where car accidents no longer outpace gun.
Right, one of the things that we're tracking.
Yeah.
But now go down to drug overdoses.
All right.
Okay? And back in 1990, it was about 8,400 a year. And look and guess where it's going. Basically, you can draw a line that goes like at a 45-degree angle.
Oh my God! You know what? As a well, not a joke, but as a I don't really know. I know it's big. I just drew it straight up to the upper right-hand corner from there and said, okay, it's going to go from 8,400 to 55,000.
And where it really went?
It went there.
52,404. It's just enormous. And then a little bit lower down, there's actually and I have this on the pundit roundup so people can go look at it right now if they want to.
Yes.
The number who die each year, and you can actually see the drug overdose soaring up while all the other things like car accidents and guns are essentially staying steady and HIV is dropping. So it's a huge number of people who are dying each year from the opioid epidemic, and it's just a nice visual to really put that into perspective. And this is why when Trump says, well, let's just get rid of Obamacare, and takes away services that help people with opioid addiction is just a huge slap in the face to his own constituents.
Yes. Well, we're all his constituents. He just doesn't care.
Well, no, we're not.
Well, I mean.
We are and we're not.
Yeah, we don't like to admit
yes, he's the president.
He's not
no, he's not my president.
But we are stuck with him for the moment.
We are. He's president of the United States, and that includes everybody in it. But in no way, shape, or form are Democrats and the resistance going to be accepting him as president. And that's not going to change, and he better get used to it. Well, you guys should just get over it. No. Sorry. Let's see what happens with the Russian investigation before you even go there. One last piece to link to what we were just doing, and this from The Atlantic. The link between opioids and unemployment, a new study finds that as the jobless rate rises, so do drug overdoses. So it's really a symbol of despair. And this goes into the long-standing argument I have with Armando about, economic insecurity. There's a lot going on here that is subtle and nuanced. And one of the things is when your town is dying and there aren't jobs for you, then you're going to, a lot of the men just wind up using drugs. That's a fact.
Yeah, I guess.
And they die from it. Now, that's not racism. That's economic insecurity and a whole bunch of other things. But it's also, changing life, and it's your kids moving out of the small town and not wanting to come back, and isolation and a whole bunch of things that are all tied together. It's not simple. And if a con man like Trump comes in and says, I'm going to fix this, and you're desperate, you might listen, and it's not all racism.
I guess that's true.
It's just not. You know,
just happened to be racist
there's
at the
some of
same
these
time.
other aspects of it as well. So it gets very complicated. I will say that what does happen is that you're so desperate you're willing to overlook the obvious racism.
That's definitely true.
And that's where all of this ties together.
Right. And
But
because
I
it's
thought these
nuanced.
articles just, illustrated just how big a deal it is. And then if you get to the why it's like that, that's where you get to, some of the motivations for why people vote the way they do. Not that it's rational, because it's not.
No. And it's not easy to separate from racism either. I mean, it
No.
may not be necessarily a motivating factor, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure for a lot of people, it's essentially like, well, I am desperate because I'm addicted to drugs, and this con man does say he'll help me with that. And as it happens, this will work out great because I am also a vicious racist. So
Yeah, and I hate
don't have
liberals.
to.
And
Right.
so this is a win-win for me, because this guy's going to stick it to them
It's a
and
dream
he's going to
come
help
true.
me.
So, yeah, I mean,
That's his core. Those are the
possible,
people that
too.
show up at the rallies.
Right.
Right?
So
It's everybody else that we're talking about as well. So it does get complicated. But anyway, it's a very complicated but more than a little bit fascinating picture of American life. And so it's all part and parcel of the same thing. In fact, that was the theme of my pundit roundup today, Contours of Modern America. Because, for example, there's a James Hohmann piece at the very top of the pundit roundup. I didn't put that in our individual roundup here, but I think I will. I'll just stick that at the bottom for easy finding for you.
Oh, all right.
And kind of goes along with that theme. The Daily 202 from James Hohmann in the Washington Post. Trump's Wisconsin win was an aftershock of the Great Recession.
Okay.
Okay. And why? Because yesterday Trump went to Wisconsin, I suppose. I think it was yesterday.
Yes.
Went to Paul Ryan's congressional district.
Yes, he didn't know Paul Ryan's name, but he did go.
Yeah. And there's also a publication of a new book by Amy Goldstein called Janesville, An American Story.
Oh.
Close-up look at what happened after GM shut down the assembly line 2 days before Christmas as the company sought to survive and the country tried to fend off another depression. So this was back in the 2008s.
Yes.
In the aughts, as they call it. In a city of 63,000, as many as 9,000 people lost their jobs.
Yes. Do they know where they put their jobs last?
No, if they, just lost.
They're in
The
Korea.
carcass of a 48 million square foot cathedral of industry still sits in silence on the river's edge. And to this day, most Washington elites, writes Hohmann, don't fully understand and grasp just how painful the Great Recession was for tens of millions of Americans. Government spending increased, and the military-industrial complex prospered. To D.C., denizens were mostly insulated from the economic crisis. But Janesville is also not part of the Rust Belt. People like in Youngstown, Ohio, or Pittsburgh have been decaying for decades, but this area was faring relatively well until the 2000s. Generations of Janesville kids going back to 1923 grew up excited to follow their dads, like it's a male thing, onto the assembly line so they too could make Chevys. They saw a union card, not a college degree, as the ticket to a respectable middle-class livelihood. So the plant closure was a profound shock to the system. Not only did it accelerate the decline of manufacturing and organized labor, it created a sense among many working-class whites that they were being left behind, harmed by trade and globalization. With full recovery still elusive, a decade later, some began to look for a new kind of savior. And points out that historically Janesville had been Democratic, but, now it's got Paul Ryan. And Ryan's a major character. And talks about in this book how he and the CEO of GM interacted, and Ryan tried to get the CEO to switch from making gas-guzzling SUVs to smaller models or pickup trucks, and then went to Detroit to plead the case with other executives, Paul Ryan did, but to no avail. And then GM declared bankruptcy. And that happened before Ryan chaired a House committee, back when the GOP establishment saw him and his budget blueprints as a nuisance. In keeping with the convention for how the author refers to all the other locals in the book, Amy refers to Speaker of the House simply as Paul. Everybody has a first name. Cher, only one name.
Right.
Like Armando. Armando wants to have only one name.
True.
He told me. So we recognize that. It's good. But what Hohmann says, the town is a useful microcosm to understand the broader trends Trump capitalized on. Union power, low. Civil war in Wisconsin after Scott Walker took on public employees divided Janesville. jobs have come back to Janesville, but they don't pay well, and they're not in manufacturing. So, you could, Dollar General has a distribution center. It's not the same thing. And by the way, we talked about the other day on the show, I think, the fact that retail jobs are starting to disappear.
Yes.
And a lot of folks who lost their jobs never fully regained their confidence. And that's all part and parcel of why Wisconsin voted the way it did.
I do note for the record here, as you said in the piece, that Janesville was doing relatively well until the 2000s.
Yeah.
And then I realized, hey, that's when Paul Ryan got there.
Right.
He was elected in like 98, and I think took over from another Republican, Mark Newman, who was an annoying idiot. But that just happens to be when Paul Ryan began representing the district. Everything fell apart and went to crap. But by all means, let's reelect him and make him Speaker of the House. He's awesome.
Absolutely. Anyway, so the whole changing of the American job situation is obviously a huge big deal, which isn't easy to wrap up in just a few words. But whether it's automation, decline in retail, decline in manufacturing, all driven by outside forces, which really isn't up to any individual president sitting in the White House, nor is it, any easier to change all this any more than it is for the president to change and all of a sudden make coal jobs come back. It's those invisible market forces that really are changing all of this, and they're a big part and parcel of what's going on, and a big part and parcel of the opioid epidemic.
Yes, very true. It's all related.
So, all related. Anyway, so that's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Again, the Georgia election, the jungle primary that they had is awfully interesting. Just like Bill Riley's imminent demise is awfully interesting and something that we should be following. And we'll come back tomorrow and we'll see if we can pick up some of the pieces that we left untied together today.
Well, that would be awfully interesting if we could do that.
Yes, that'd be awfully good of us to do. Yes. Awfully good. So this is Greg Dworkin speaking with my friend David Waldman, my longtime friend. Kagro in the morning. Thanks so much for listening, folks. Is Joan on the show today?
Not yet. I haven't heard her. Yes, I assume so.
No, I would have noticed her if she were here.
I would have let her talk.
I would have let her talk too. That's unusual for me. Yeah. Take care, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, very good.
If Joan does come on, do say hi.
Okay, I can do that. Okay, I'll forget by the time she does, but I'll say hi to her regardless. It'll be.
She'll hear it when she listens to the show.
Yeah, she'll say, "You mean from Greg?" Right? Yes.
Right. Exactly. Not from me. From Greg. All right. Take care.
Thank you. You do the same. I'm taking a look, by the way, at this article that you just were reading from. There's this weird picture in it of, I guess, Trump campaigning in presumably Wisconsin. Yes, West Allis. Allis. I don't know if they say that in a funny way. In Wisconsin with Paul Ryan, who he kept calling Ron, which I assume he meant. I wonder if he was thinking Ron Paul, like Paul Ryan, Ron Paul. I don't know. Anyway, it's this picture of him. They're campaigning. They're on the stage. There's like Christmas trees behind them, and the podium has a Merry Christmas sign on it. You'll recall, of course, that was a huge issue during the campaign that Trump insisted Democrats won't allow you to say Merry Christmas anymore, so I'm going to say Merry. So he has Merry Christmas is on the podium, and he's standing there. Paul Ryan is applauding his display of a gift of a Green Bay Packers jersey with the name Trump on and the number 45. Very hilarious. But Trump's face is a mess regardless. But it's hard to read him. You got so many weird pictures of his face. He's probably sort of, it looks like he's grimacing. He's grouchy and upset looking, holding up this jersey. And with the Merry Christmas at the bottom, it just looks ridiculous. So there's like this Trump Grinch growling about how horrible Christmas is. But he's probably, to give him the benefit of the doubt, he's probably making that face because I don't know, maybe he's genuinely moved at having been given this very meaningful gift. Or maybe he's just a wacko and a sociopath and he has no idea what faces are appropriate. but it's just the most disturbing looking thing. And I guess the green shirt reminds me of the Grinch, and the fact that there's Merry Christmas at the bottom. He doesn't look very merry, I can tell you that. So take a look at that article. Highly recommended. Of course, we'll have it in today's roundup when Scott Anderson puts together his afternoon masterpiece, as he does for us each day. And when he does, we'll have all of the articles that Greg cited, and sometimes we even include the articles that he meant to cite and didn't get to. We include that occasionally as a service as well, just to keep you up to date, and also because I can't remember, did we talk about this thing or not? All right. Let's see. What have we to go to this morning? Oh, Pocket isn't open yet, so we'll have to definitely do that. And I can remind myself, Pocket's, the most amazing thing about Pocket is I can use it to remind myself, what did I think was so interesting yesterday? Because I can't think of anything right now to talk about. Let's see. Let's see. There's news on the emoluments clause front that I guess I would bring you up to speed on. One of the, or I guess a lawsuit has kicked into high gear because they've finally found some additional plaintiffs to include in the case. As I recall, the story was that someone who books events at ballrooms in hotels around the city, that's who they were looking for originally. They did find somebody finally who was saying she books on behalf of 2 hotels, and those 2 hotels are not the Trump hotels, and she, I guess, will be claiming to have lost business that she otherwise would have been able to book into these other 2 hotels because everybody is busy trying to book at the Trump hotel, because everybody knows that if you book at the Trump hotel, Trump makes money, and when Trump makes money, he's happy, and when he can tell who the money came from, he's happy with that person. And so, people are moving their events there because emoluments. David Farenthold is on this article, along with Jonathan O'Connell, the Post reporting about these 2 plaintiffs joining the suit and alleging breach of the emoluments clause. Let's just catch up on where we are on that case. 2 new plaintiffs, an association of restaurants and restaurant workers, and a woman who books banquet halls for 2 D.C. hotels, plan to join a lawsuit alleging that President Trump has violated the Constitution's emoluments clause because his hotels and restaurants do business with foreign governments. So they're aiming at the foreign emoluments clause. No word about the domestic one. And I don't know why they can't also hit that one with the plaintiff who books the hotels. Anyway, the new plaintiffs will be added to the case on Tuesday morning, according to a spokesman for Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. That's CREW by acronym, a D.C.-based watchdog group. CREW had originally filed suit against Trump in federal court in January, alleging that by continuing to own his business, which rents out hotel rooms and meeting spaces to other governments, Trump had violated the constitutional provision that bans emoluments from foreign powers. Legal experts had said that the case faced a serious hurdle. It wasn't clear that the watchdog group actually had standing to sue in the first place. What harm had it suffered specifically because of Trump's actions? In other words, it's not enough for CREW to be interested in responsibility and ethics in Washington. They have to be able to show that they were actually hurt by the violation of the emoluments clause. We all are, I mean, in the sense that the founders included the emoluments clauses, both of them, in order to protect us as citizens from possibly being governed by a president more beholden to either foreign interests or wealthy interests here in the United States that would pay him in addition to, or more even, than his salary, and he would be more interested in helping them than he was in helping the rest of us who pay his salary. Although who knows whether Trump even believes we pay his salary. One, he says he's giving his salary away, so you're not paying me at all, in his view. And, he could also be a fan of Mark Wayne Mullen's theory of taxation, which says that if he paid more in taxes over the years than he gets in salary, and since he's giving his salary away, I'm sure he thinks that counts as a zero salary, which would be fine because he has paid zero in taxes. So, I mean, I guess in his mind, he also isn't being paid by the taxpayers. But I think he's already copped to that version of theory of the taxation. Anyway, legal experts had said that we basically need somebody with standing, somebody who can say, I actually lost cash money because of the way he violates the emoluments clause. And it's still going to be difficult to establish that. The new plaintiffs are intended to offer an alternative answer to that question. Both say that as direct competitors of Trump's restaurants and hotels, they may lose foreign clients who may book with Trump properties to curry favor with the president. It's interesting. I mean, that's true, and that would go a long way anyway toward establishing standing. But the intent of the emoluments clause, it's funny. And I mean, I hope they don't use this as a way of escaping jurisdiction over the case, but it's not the purpose of the foreign emoluments clause that other hotels be guaranteed the emoluments. It's not that, I mean, it's funny having to establish standing. I don't even know. This is a very weird sort of case. And I mean, establishing standing in a civil suit usually does require showing economic damages, and they have that here. But then again, I guess, I don't know. I suppose if my idea of standing is broader, my idea of standing for the original intent of the emoluments clause really it should just be that there's general standing among all of the voting public, or even just any citizen of the United States, or really anybody in the United States for that matter, because the damage is done when the president accepts emoluments, not when emoluments are rerouted from me or anyone else. I don't know. This is a very weird theory of standing behind this one, but they're going with tradition on this, and it can't hurt, especially if if I have anything to say about it. Jurisdiction would be far broader anyway, or standing would be far broader, and it wouldn't really even matter about whether or not you had suffered economic damages. So, okay, this can only be better, I guess. Here they're commenting on it to Farenthold and who was the co-writer here, O'Connell, in their piece. It's damage to our members, said Saru Jayaraman, co-director of the Restaurant Opportunities Center United. That would be the trade group. It's damage to our members, both employers' bottom lines, and workers' loss of income and tips. That group, the Restaurant Opportunities Center United, a nonprofit association that says its members include more than 25,000 restaurant workers, 200 plus restaurants, and thousands of people who eat in restaurants. Really? I mean, its members... That's some kind of... Okay, well, it's a nonprofit. So, Restaurant Opportunities Center United. That's funny. I understand representing restaurant workers, restaurants themselves, but representing thousands of people who eat in restaurants, that is a weird membership. Well, anyway, the group trains restaurant workers and advocates for higher wages. I was like, they're training advocates for higher wages? Wouldn't those be restaurant workers? Well, sure. Okay. Well, they advocate for higher wages. That's nice of them to do. The association was one of two plaintiffs added to the lawsuit Tuesday. Jayaraman would not cite a specific instance in which a member of the group had lost a client to a Trump business. Now, if the theory of standing is supposedly based on that loss, eventually they're going to have to. But okay, for whatever reason right now he's unwilling to. Saru is I couldn't guess at gender because I'm just not familiar with the naming nomenclature here for... Alright, well, Saru Jayaraman, she says that the potential for such a development is clear, and I guess that was enough for them to try and join in the lawsuit. Eventually we'll find somebody. Let's see who's speaking here. She goes on to say, it's not a free market or a free country when foreign governments feel like they have to eat and patronize Trump hotels and restaurants because he's the president of the United States. That's a point. Not one necessarily made by the standing issue, though. I mean, that's why the emoluments clause was written, and that's a lot closer to what I was thinking, that it's not, well, yeah, it's not a free market or a free country when foreign governments feel like they have to eat and patronize Trump hotels to get a fair shake. See, that feels to me like they really ought to be worried about the domestic emoluments clause, more so than the foreign, and that perhaps the other woman who books events at the other hotels might be able to establish a violation of the foreign emoluments clause. Well, anyway, the other new plaintiff is Jill Phaneuf. I'm guessing at that pronunciation, Phaneuf. Phaneuf? That's a weird name. Okay, never mind that. The other new plaintiff, Jill Phaneuf, who works for a hospitality company booking events for 2 Washington hotels, the Carlisle Hotel near DuPont Circle and the Glover Park Hotel on Wisconsin Avenue Northwest. The 2 hotels themselves are not joining the lawsuit, the watchdog group said. Jordan Leibowitz, the crew spokesman anyway, said that Phaneuf is a contractor who's paid on commissions that are tied to the gross receipts of the events she books. She joined the suit as an individual. I joined this lawsuit because the president is taking business away from me and others with unfair business practices that violate the Constitution, Phaneuf said in a written statement. She declined to comment when asked if she could cite an example where a Trump hotel had taken her business away. When the Washington Post asked the White House for comment, a spokeswoman directed the question to the Trump Organization. A Trump Organization spokeswoman said she could not comment before she had seen a copy of the new filing. That's an interesting development all by itself. I'm suing you based on the emoluments clause. I refer your question, though, I say to the person who's suing me, to the Trump Organization, even though you can't sue the Trump Organization for violation of the emoluments clause. You could sue them for something else, but not that one. So that's a neat trick. And I guess they got people to buy into it. Although, I mean, how much do you have to buy? We're not commenting. And you can talk to the Trump Organization. They also aren't commenting because they'll say, I'm not commenting because this is a suit about the emoluments clause. You'll have to talk to the White House. Well, they said to talk to you. Well, I say talk to them. And neither of them will talk to you. And so you're still stuck without a quote. So you might as well pass on the information that you asked the question and they said go to the Trump Organization. After all, it interested me enough to talk about it. The aim of the lawsuit is the same as before. The plaintiffs ask U.S. District Judge Ronnie Abrams in New York to order Trump to stop violating the emoluments clause. I order you to stop doing that. And to release financial records to prove it. The Constitution, you may have heard of it, says that no person holding a federal office shall, quote, accept of any present, emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. It was inspired by fears that early American ambassadors might be corrupted by gifts from the countries where they were serving. The plaintiffs in this case say that by the same logic, Trump's loyalties might be bent by foreign governments paying for the hotel rooms and office space he owns. And, of course, I would have to agree. And, with almost any other president, I would say perhaps, well, it doesn't look good, but I would have my doubts as to whether or not a president would be so craven as to simply conclude, well, whatever country it is, the Swiss have rented the ballroom at the Trump National what do they call it? The Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. And they're paying some pretty good money for it. And so, therefore, I love Switzerland and I would do whatever they ask. Or pretty much, I owe them a favor. I feel generously inclined toward them. Where a normal president who somehow managed to hang on to such a business during his presidency might very well say, well, I'm favorably inclined toward the Swiss generally. That is, we're, cooperative, if not allied. They being neutral, of course, would probably not count themselves as an ally of ours. Nice chocolate, pretty good cheese, nice fellows in general, beautiful country, people like it. I'm favorably inclined toward the Swiss, as opposed to, I really want to do something for Switzerland. Most people probably wouldn't be thinking about that anyway, but Trump, I'd never put it past him. Trump is definitely the sort of person who views everything he does in life that way. They paid me money, and I love money, therefore I love them. And he'll do something just as dumb as how can I plug Switzerland? I'm going to go out there and, by the way, I just want everybody to know that Swiss Miss Instant Cocoa is just the most beautiful cup of hot chocolate you've ever seen. Everyone should have some. I start my day with it every morning. I never go anywhere without Swiss Miss Instant Cocoa. Yodel-hee-hoo. I don't know that he wouldn't do that. And I doubt very much whether anybody else feels the same way, even when they do get paid by these countries. I think he's a unique case. Anyway, where did we leave off? The plaintiffs were saying that Trump's loyalties might be bent by foreign governments paying for the hotel rooms and office space that he owns. And then we go on here to say, this is the MOAC. Everyone's into this because of the giant bomb we dropped in Afghanistan the other day. This is the MOAC, the mother of all conflicts. Just leave that acronym alone. Said Norm Eisen, former ethics official in the Obama administration and a board member of Crew. This is the one thing that we have in our power to do, to stop it, he said. In the past, Trump's attorneys have said that the term emolument should not apply to transactions where foreign governments pay market rates for hotel rooms or banquet halls. And it's an interesting argument that they make in that sense, and I bet that they would find some sympathetic ears in the judiciary who'd been trained in law and economics. It's not completely off the rocker to say that, but Trump's a unique case, although how you make this point legally, I have no idea. But, except you should go in there and literally just play video compilations of him talking about things like that. Just grab the video of him down in Mar-a-Lago early in his administration when he stopped in at the wedding, and was wishing the couple good luck, but also made a point of saying the parents of presumably of the bride, they've been members here for a long time members of Mar-a-Lago. They've paid me a fortune. I love them. They're fantastic people. He's constantly saying things like that, and I think he thinks that it's something of a cute joke about Trump loves money and everybody thinks that's a funny thing, so it's a go-to line. But I don't know. He certainly does it an awful lot. He's on record frequently saying that he actually likes people better when they give him money. And that's going to, his comments have sunk him in court cases in the recent past. So I don't see why this one shouldn't do the same. But I am a little bit, this case is a little bit weird. And I think we deserve to do a little bit more thinking about the standing issue on this one. All right. Let's see. A couple other interesting things. Let's say, you know what? Speaking of emoluments, I put this one away the other day, and although we've been over this ground, I thought maybe I would let Laura Clausen help organize my thoughts on this. She wrote over the weekend, on Saturday, they ran her piece, Trump's Mar-a-Lago visits are the ultimate grift. The more he vacations, the more he profits. This is something we've talked about and argued on the show for quite some time, but I thought I'd let her put a finer point on it by setting it down in writing. No reasonable person, she says, would say presidents don't have the right to vacation a little. It's a stressful job, and they're never fully off the job anyway, though he is, I would say. But there's a little, and then there's 28% of the time in such a way as to profit yourself. guess which category Donald Trump is in? And in fact, he attacked President Obama for vacationing at all, for that matter, saying, if you're in the White House, who wants to take a vacation? But that's covered by the no reasonable person clause above. Yes, that's the figure, 28% of the time. This, according to a quote she takes from NBC News here. Since his January inauguration, President Trump has spent 7 of 13 weekends at his Palm Beach, Florida estate. According to NBC News estimates, by Sunday, Trump will have spent 28% of his term traveling to or staying at Mar-a-Lago. Trump hosted his second world leader at the, quote, Winter White House, unquote, last weekend with Chinese President Xi Jinping joining Trump for meetings Thursday and Friday. Trump stayed the rest of the weekend frequenting his nearby golf club on both days. And that doesn't cover Trump's trips to his Virginia golf club or his Washington, D.C. hotel. Not vacations as such, says Laura, but opportunities to promote his own properties from which he's still profiting. That, more than any amount of time he is spending away from the White House, is the important issue. And another quote here, it's just another example of his consistent efforts to exploit public office for private gain. That, according to ethics expert Steve Schooner, speaking with NBC News, he's using his official office and the fact that people have to travel with him, meet him, and follow him to promote his commercial enterprise, in this case, his privately owned club, Mar-a-Lago. This is a privately owned club that, for all intents and purposes, was just another golf property in Florida before. Mar-a-Lago isn't a golf property. It's the neighboring golf clubs that are. But okay, that almost now is something that Americans immediately recognize, Schooner continued. Imagine what you would have to pay to get that kind of brand recognition. That's extraordinary. As we've seen from the amount of time he obviously spends watching Fox News and tweeting about it, Trump is fully capable of being in the White House and not working. He's getting something more important, to him anyway, out of visiting his properties. He's building the brand, justifying Mar-a-Lago's doubled membership fees, and drawing business from people who want to be in the room with him or just plain suck up. Profit, 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 with a heaping side of surrounding himself with sycophants. That's the way Laura concludes this stuff. What we really need to keep an eye on, in my opinion, of course, is the fact that every time he or any member of his family travels, or more to the point, really, when his family members travel, the Secret Service has to go along too. I think that's the more effective way of funneling government dollars into his pocket, charging the Secret Service for seats on Trump Air Group owned aircraft. And I note how frequently he and Melania travel separately to Mar-a-Lago in order to facilitate, it seems, precisely that sort of arrangement. Okay. Let's see. There's plenty more that I have lying around here, but I thought that was an interesting one I wanted to sort of put out there and on the record as well. Let's see where to go with the rest of this stuff. How long is this piece? I told you the other day that Mother Jones reporter Shane Bauer had been on hand to cover the what became known in alt-right circles as the Second Battle of Berkeley. And he was on hand to document all of the atrocities there. I don't think that's something we can fit in to today's show. We might go to that well perhaps tomorrow. But I will say this. It's worth looking at for the on-the-ground reporting and some of the pictures, the photos that accompany, and video that accompanies the piece. Very interesting to see the very weird mix of types of people that showed up at this event and how they were equipped for it. Lots of face masking going on, by the way, with this, although some people were willing to show their faces. And I guess among the anti-fascist protesters, of course, those being the black bloc anarchists, they love masking their faces too. But I'm surprised by how many people showed up with helmets and goggles as well as masks. But the these people love their cosplay, so I guess this stuff was in their toy chests already. It's a very weird group of people, and I recommend that you take a look at it. We'll see if we can't perhaps, this might be a Thursday or Friday thing to read through the comments from those people. But if you're looking for some entertainment in the meantime, take a look at those pictures. Let's see. Anything else we need to catch up with? Here's a comment or question, I guess, Michael Musson asking. The thing I still don't quite understand is, what happens next if a judge finds that Trump violated the emoluments clause? The answer is, nobody knows. That's one of the difficulties of the emoluments clause. There's no penalty outlined. The only penalty provision that anybody has ever tied to a violation of the emoluments clause is impeachment. But the same body that would impeach you is also, of course, given the opportunity to whitewash the whole thing by simply saying, yeah, we will actually approve of these individual instances of emoluments. They can okay it and render it non-impeachable in so doing. Not just that they're unwilling to impeach the guy or that they think they won't be able to convict in the Senate or anything like that. They just simply could say this was imagined to be unconstitutional and or illegal, and we're saying it isn't. In this particular case, I guess the kind of relief being sought by the plaintiffs gives us a more specific answer. I don't understand in general. I'm with you in general, like what happens next if a judge finds that he violated the emoluments clause. There's nothing in the Constitution that tells us what to do about it, or even if it said, oh, and you're supposed to impeach a person who violates this, a judge can't do that. But the plaintiffs in this case actually asked for specific relief. They asked for a judge to somehow prohibit him from continuing to do this. And that's arguably within a judge's power to issue some kind of an injunction that would prevent things. And you could, I suppose you could at least try to structure it in one of a small number of ways. I mean, I guess you could say you could enjoin the president from promoting the clubs this way or the hotels this way. You could enjoin the president from accepting the emoluments or owning a stake in any organization that would accept payments in for services rendered at the hotels, so that he doesn't enjoy control of or the benefits of these emoluments. I guess that's a possibility. You could require financial disclosures that are audited by some, in some public or accountable way, to show forensically that he's not benefiting from the payments for goods and services at the hotels. I suppose that's a possibility. I mean, it opens up another can of worms, a constitutional one at that, about whether or not it's within the power of any court to compel the president to do anything like that. That's an open question. So I don't really know. Not sure exactly where this would go, and that's a pretty good indication that there's some chance that courts will do anything to rid themselves of the obligation to answer that question, which is not usually, shouldn't be regarded as a good sign for the suit. There's another comment here from Bosswood, who tweets from the handle of the address of @Bosengood, BOSENGOOD, and listening along here, and says, standing seems weak. Unfortunately, impeachment seems like the only likely remedy, and that would be the most perfect remedy, certainly, and of course we can't really say that it's a likely one, but it's likely the only one that exists anyway. He also suggests that perhaps the case that the other hotels and hotel workers might be able to bring would be a tortious interference with contract, I guess. In most, he says it says here tortious interference with business relations. That would, I guess, be a claim that you might have to invent that particular claim. But if there's no contract in place, it's awfully difficult in some cases. But certainly you could pretty clearly demonstrate cases where no contract yet exists, but might have, but for this interference, I guess. I'm used to it being referred to as tortious interference with contract. But certainly that's a better case, and a judge would know what to do with it, and it's possible you might be able to prove that, for instance, there were some stories of events paid for by foreign governments in hotels around the city that canceled, like at the Four Seasons, and moved to the Trump Hotel once his election was a fait accompli, and they thought that they could buy some additional influence with their money by moving it to his hotel. That they could say. Certainly there might have been a contract in place there that they might be able to base this claim on, but it wouldn't necessarily reach the emoluments clause at that stage. But, and again, tortious interference with contract seems like something that would be more geared toward the domestic emoluments clause than anything else. I have difficulty seeing why they're focusing on the foreign ones, although maybe it just they think for publicity's sake it looks worse if there's a foreign government involved. Yet again, foreign governments buying undue influence over Donald Trump, that would be a particularly damning storyline, I would think. Okay, let's see. Where else might we find some interesting entertainment? Before we hear from Joan, so I want to keep it relatively short in the read, but I don't know if I've got anything that counts as a quick hit on all these things. I guess we might say or point to some stories we might want to expand on in the near future, including, Eric Prince, the former head of Blackwater and expatriate, and brother of Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, now finds himself in some possible hot water as well. We brought his name up a few days ago, but a little more digging into what he's been up to lately reveals that he's been involving himself with some strange actors of foreign governments as well. The Intercept, among the many publications looking into that. Speaking of which, there's also some interesting news from the Pentagon price gouging front. Couple of interesting stories. Yeah, see, both of these I think will require a little bit more investigation into what's going on. Here's something that we ought to at least enter onto the record, and I think we can do relatively quickly, having to do with Paul Manafort. We told you that Paul Manafort had dealt himself back into the game relatively quickly following his disgrace with payments from Russia and Eastern European interests during the campaign. But he's gotten himself back into the game by now finding lobbying contracts with wealthy Chinese businessmen. I mentioned that to you the other day. China, of course, back in the news with their visit to the president's visit to Mar-a-Lago, the granting of the trademarks to Ivanka Trump, et cetera, et cetera. Manafort, of course, has his hand in that pie, but there's more. The New York Times has a piece from last week that we forgot to mention at this point. But after his exit from the campaign, it says Manafort borrowed from businesses with Trump ties. You likely have heard this story, but I want to put it out there again as another puzzle piece that will have to fit into the bigger picture at some point later on when we figure out a little bit more about what this is really all about. But we'll give you the quick hit up at the top here. They don't bury the lead for very long. Here in the New York Times. This is Mike McIntyre's piece of April 12th. August 19th was an eventful day for Paul Manafort. That morning, he stepped down from guiding Donald J. Trump's presidential campaign after a brief tenure during which Mr. Trump won the Republican nomination. You may have heard about this. Democrats' emails were hacked, and the campaign's contacts with Russia came under scrutiny. Remember all this? Dogged by revelations about past financial dealings in Ukraine, Mr. Manafort retreated from public view, but behind the scenes, he was busy with other matters. Papers were recorded that same day, the same day he steps down, creating a shell company controlled by Mr. Manafort that soon received $13 million in loans from two businesses with ties to Mr. Trump, including one that partners with a Ukrainian-born billionaire and another led by a Trump economic advisor. They were among $20 million in loans secured by properties belonging to Mr. Manafort and his wife. The purpose of the loans is unstated in public records, although at least some of them appear to be a part of an effort by Mr. Manafort to stave off a personal financial crisis stemming from failed investments with his son-in-law. The transactions raise a number of questions, including whether Mr. Manafort's decision to turn to Trump-connected lenders was related to his role in the campaign, where he had agreed to serve for free. Another one of those weird deals being made. That's an interesting thing that billionaire Donald Trump, who everyone wants to go to work for because he's super rich and he'll give you a piece of his vast wealth if you just suck up to him enough and do what he says. It's weird that he was able to find campaign managers willing to work for free twice in the same campaign. And, of course, neither one of them ended up actually working for free, but instead pocketing millions of dollars from wealthy benefactors to Trump's campaign. How odd it is. But here I thought they were just doing it for the internship value. All right. Well, you learn something new every day. Joan McCarter is here with us. Good morning, Joan. How are you
Good
doing?
morning, Kagro.
Greg says hi.
Yes. He thought you would forget.
Already. Yeah, and I would have forgotten, except for I saw you tweet to him that you were going to just say hi to him directly so that it wouldn't become an issue for me. But okay. And I did see that, so now I'm reminded. So you probably say hi to Greg. He says hi to you. This is all very good. It's working out very, very nicely. I feel like we are all one big happy family here.
We are.
Even if we are on
mostly.
2 at a time.
Then there's Armando.
Right.
But,
well, he's rarely happy. But okay. I think it makes him happy to be grumbling about things, mostly. Anyway,
I think so as well.
Yes, he has a good time when he's here. All right. So I was, I guess I'll drop this for now just because I wanted to sort of put it on the record about Manafort. Never really seemed to be done with Paul Manafort. He's one of those guys that always finds a way to be siphoning millions of dollars off of something even after he quits it, which is amazing.
The proverbial bad penny that just keeps showing up, right?
Right. I mean, even his daughters know it.
Billions and billions and billions of pennies.
Right. They certainly have plenty of those pennies around, and it doesn't seem to bother his daughters that much. So they're upset about him taking blood money, but they don't seem to worry about it when they get a piece of it. But okay. Anyway, they're not in this particular article, but it is really amazing. And if you read on down, and I invite you to do so, you can find the article linked in today's post from Scott Anderson this afternoon. You will see that Manafort is not only borrowing millions of dollars from Trump and Trump-connected businesses and Trump partners in Eastern Europe, but that they all bear names that we're already familiar with and we have read about in the past and have been scandal-tainted already. So I suppose they figured, why not throw another $20 million in the pot and give it to Manafort. He does have trouble repaying his loans, like Trump himself, as a matter of fact. I got to get into this.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, he's a bit of a deadbeat himself, Paul Manafort, but not a huge surprise, but perhaps news. but that's a different category than huge surprise, I guess.
Grifters hanging out together,
Yeah,
I guess.
It's weird. You'd think they would be like similarly charged particles. You know, you can only have one in this field, because otherwise that guy might take some of my grift. But
yeah,
I guess,
or maybe they've learned that teaming up in their grift is the way to really succeed.
That may be it. I mean, you know, one guy in a tie could be a con man, but two guys in ties, that's a firm. So
there you go.
You know, we don't question these things. In the 1980s, the big lesson may have been that, you don't have to con people on your own. You can go in together and get twice the money. So, congratulations, Ronald Reagan. Well done. I blame you. You're not around. All right.
I think we can blame him for an awful lot.
I will. I know you'll do it too.
Every day, every chance I get.
Right. Well,
Donald Trump, it's Reagan's fault.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it. The other thing I did see this morning, I just will throw out there again. David Farenthold also on this story. They're beginning to sniff around in the transition funding and the inaugural fundraising. And I guess now everybody's beginning to realize, yes, it's all true. Just as we found out at the time, there's no requirement whatsoever for telling the FEC or anyone else what you do with the money that comes in. You got to tell people what money comes in and who donates it, but you don't have to tell anybody what you do with it. And Trump apparently shattered all previous records, raising twice the amount for his inauguration that President Obama raised for his second, I think was the bigger dollar inauguration. But whichever it was, he beat that record by a factor of 2. But of course, as you noticed, nobody came to his inauguration, and he didn't have any big stars to pay either, and no additional security to provide because there were fewer people. But there is no requirement to say what happens to the money. So we may never find out whether, for instance, Donald Trump simply says, well, what if I take it? Suppose I take it home with me. What's the big deal? After all, I'm a charitable guy. I give away millions of dollars in charity every year. Other people's money. This also is other people's money. No reason why I couldn't take it, make it mine, and then give some of that away. Or give none of it away, for that matter. We never really anticipated this and bothered to write down. It would be illegal for the president to simply abscond with all this funds because we just thought no one would ever do it. But now we have Donald Trump. And he might.
I'm sure he did.
And I don't know yet. I don't know how we would find out. You don't have to report it. Ordinarily, you would say, well, if he just took $100 million, it would show up on his taxes. But you know where we are with that.
Right. So he could take, there are a number of possibilities, I guess. He could take it for himself.
Yeah.
Could be in his very own personal bank account.
Right.
He could figure out how to recycle it into the brand new PAC that he has, the non-profit that some of his political team have created.
I see. Yeah, that's a pretty good possibility there.
It's a very good possibility because, you know, who the donors are for many of these organizations don't have to be disclosed.
Right.
So that would be my big bet on where it's ended up.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one because, I mean, they'll need to fill those coffers and, you know, they got people with deep pockets they can go to, but they all recently gave.
And there's a very likely, and of course I can't remember the name of the organization now, a very likely recipient that has started working now, tweeting out on Obamacare repeal.
Oh.
And has just in the last few weeks gotten very, very active in pushing the handful of folks who are really locked into Trump care for whatever reason. I don't really understand this, but he's got who he considers his allies.
I see.
In Trump care. And we've been seeing, oh God, what do they call this thing? I saw it for a few minutes yesterday and it was just insane.
Huh.
Looking for it now.
Okay.
Because what they're calling themselves is so funny.
Americans for Awesomeness. Something like
It's
this.
close.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll see.
America
if we can dig that up.
First Policies, but what they are calling this group that is supporting the Repeal Obamacare Caucus, ROCK. Hashtag ROCK.
That's a stretch. Okay. Repeal Obamacare Caucus. Not the Freedom Caucus, but the other one.
Right.
That's a group that's a nonprofit?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah. It's America First Policies.
They want to make sure none of you profit. That's
And it was created by 6 of his top campaign aides.
And who are
Brad
they?
Parscale,
What?
Rick Gates. Those are his digital and data directors.
Okay.
2 campaign advisors for Pence, Nick Ayers and Marty Obst, David Bossie. You know that name.
Yes.
And Katrina Pearson.
The most famous of the group, I would say. David Bossie is the Citizens United guy.
Yeah.
And Katrina Pearson is the, I don't know what to tell you about her. She's just bonkers. And I guess that's the job they stuck her in.
They call her senior advisor on the campaign communications team.
I guess that counts as yeah, I mean.
You gotta have some kind of title.
Wow. Yeah, she was clearly the craziest of his regular spokespeople and the least grounded in reality. So, okay, I guess it's a good idea. It's nice that they thought to keep her out of the White House. I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
So.
I was too.
Yeah, I mean, it may be that she couldn't have passed a security check, background check.
Walking around with that live animal hanging around her neck.
Well, there is that. That's true. But, I mean, she's a criminal background, so, lots of people do. They just don't end up as, I
didn't know that.
Yeah. Of course. I think her career trajectory is a familiar one, but she made it to prominence as a spokesperson for a freelance Tea Party group. And you remember how that happened? Like everybody said, there's the Tea Party, but I'm the Tea Party Express, and like the
kind of like
Express.
Ginny Thomas.
Yeah, and exactly these sorts of people. But there's a couple of them who made a name for themselves, organizing a group that they put the name Tea Party in, and then just living off of the proceeds that they gathered up, because a lot of Tea Party supporters were confused as to who were I want to donate to the Tea Party. Okay, send your check to Tea Party Express. And there's hundreds of millions of people in the country who actually will do stuff like that. I like Product X. Well, send your check to Product X Foundation. That has nothing to do with Product X, but whatever. She was one of those people. She had previously been, as I recall, arrested for shoplifting a couple of times when people were not sending her checks. And then she found the Tea Party grift, and then she parlayed that into, like Kellyanne Conway, supporting a Ted Cruz, I think, originally, in the primaries, and then switching over to Donald Trump, probably on the theory that he's rich and he'll give me a big part of his money, like we were talking about earlier, and then he doesn't. And I don't know. I don't know how much she got paid, or if she got paid via the campaign, or whether she was just lured in with promises of I'll give you something else later. If I can find a way to raise other people's money and give you that, then you'll get paid. And I guess that's finally coming to fruition for her. Congratulations, Katrina.
Yeah.
One of a couple
soft
of people.
Soft landings for all these folks.
Yeah. Now, there were a half dozen people that they hired into the White House with criminal backgrounds anyway, and then they ended up getting the boot a couple weeks in when they found that out. We heard those stories a couple of weeks ago. That was pretty quickly forgotten, including, I think the most prominent name was the daughter of a big muckety-muck in the Florida Republican Party, who took care of her daughter and plugged her into the Trump organization and into the White House. And then they said, oh, wait a minute, you got a drunk driving conviction. You're out of here. Well, that was the least crazy thing that had happened that day, I'm sure. So we haven't thought about it
So
since.
we didn't find out about it.
Right. I mean, and compared to sending the, Vinson battle group to the wrong country, I suppose it's small potatoes.
Oh, Lord.
It was a big day yesterday.
It was a big day yesterday.
What occupied your time yesterday? I'm scrolling down looking for where can I pick up Joan's feed here. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is just look at the front page and find your name. But I had to scroll a good way to find your last entry that was on the front page. Although with Congress in recess,
I'm doing a little less.
Yeah, you're catching up
and tomorrow,
in the background.
Yesterday. This is one of my word finding problematic days. The words some days just don't.
Right. Don't do words.
Connect.
Good.
Yeah. It's the mouth part that I have because I don't normally have to use it.
That's true. It's
usually
fingers.
brain fingers.
Yeah. Well,
brain tongue some days is just a little bit more challenging for me.
Okay. Well,
but no, yesterday was pretty much consumed, at least the latter half of it.
Yeah.
By Georgia.
Okay.
And our special election.
Yes. Most of the front page was consumed that way too. Big day.
Yes.
Were you watching? Helping out?
Of course.
On the, yeah. Okay.
Until Fulton County and its one bad card, and I just said, okay. The outcome is pretty much assured anyway, so hanging out to the bitter end with Fulton and their one bad data card, I don't really need to.
Yes. We always seem to find one of those.
It was pretty clear that he wasn't going to get the 50.1% that he needed. So
yeah. It's interesting that Georgia requires that. I've never loved the runoff system that they have in places. It's frustrating.
The jungle primary thing sucks.
Yes.
It just sucks.
But it is interesting that they demand in Georgia that people who are going to represent them in elective office get over 50% of the vote, which is a weird thing because we don't have that. And for the president, for instance.
Yeah.
It's strange. They should sue.
Once again, proving that the Democrat who wins the most votes doesn't get the job.
Yeah. I know. It seems like a pattern here. But voters in Georgia should sue and say, this isn't right. This guy shouldn't be the president. Of course, Hillary Clinton didn't get 50% either, but maybe we should have a runoff until someone does.
There you go.
Right. I'll take it, even though that would be a disaster for the federal government. It would be a lesser disaster than we have at the moment.
Yeah, I think it would.
Right. Thank you. I'll take I'll opt for door number 2, or the 2 birds in the bush there, please. That looks pretty good. Let's try that one. The bird I have in my hand is an idiot, and he doesn't know where Korea is. So there's no use to me.
But apparently the Armada is turned around and now heading on its way to Korea.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for updating me on that. I was a little making fun of, Trump for being confused, but I'm a little bit behind. But I'm not the president.
I hope somebody knows where they are.
What are the Australians doing? Are we sending another carrier group to do those exercises?
I don't know. Did we finish those exercises? And now, I don't know.
They were going toward as I understood it, the story was they were on their way to meet the Australians.
Yeah.
And now they have to go to Korea because the president said they were already there and they weren't, and that's embarrassing. So in a week from now, they'll reach Korea. But in the meantime, do the Australians hate us? I mean, we hung up on their prime minister.
I'm sure that the Australians hate us for many other reasons.
Very sorry.
But yeah, this could be a problem.
I guess. I mean, I don't know what the Australians are likely to do about anything. They'll probably just sigh heavily and say, well, America's just going to be dumb for a couple of years and we're just going to have to wait until
I think a lot of the
happens.
world is taking that.
I guess so.
That approach.
But it's very insulting, and it's important that we conduct these exercises.
How for a week did our top command not know where the Carl Vinson was?
I don't know. Don't have phones.
Did they know and they were just backing up Trump because they felt they had to because he's commander-in-chief?
I need to read more about this, I guess. But, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it sounds like it was one of those situations where nobody wanted to say things got screwed up. Like, I could see maybe Trump saying, I want to send a aircraft carrier battle group to Korea to send a message. Which ones have we got in the area? And somebody may have said the closest would be the Vinson,
which is heading the other way.
Yeah, and they may not have said anything about that either. And the closest one we have is the Vinson. I mean, I happen to know that. I mean, they're there, and you can usually the fleets are generally in certain areas, and they're centered around the aircraft carriers, and so people that know would say, well, Pacific. Okay, that's going to be the Vincent. And they may not have told him, or they may have said to him, but it is going the other way. And he, for Trump says, we'll turn it around and send it to Korea. Well, that's not an easy thing to do, even if there's nothing going on. But generally speaking, if you're cruising somewhere, it's for a reason, like important exercises with the Australians very soon, whatever. And you could, I guess, easily envision Trump saying, well, turn it around. Well, it's not that easy. You see, listen, I have a tea time. Get it done. I gotta go. So he just thought, I ordered it, so it's done. Like I spoke to a military aide and said I want it, as opposed to I went through whatever procedures a commander-in-chief really has to go through in order to say, yes, I'm serious. I'm not just kidding. Turn this battle group around, cancel the exercises. I'm sure they've had to cancel exercises before. For real emergencies, it's a thing.
Typhoons.
But, yeah. Oh, that too, right? A war breaks out. Well, I'm sorry. It sounds like I'll get to you after the exercises. You would turn around for that. But it's not entirely clear that Trump was maybe serious or the message got miscommunicated or Trump heard from this guy, well, we'll do that. But didn't understand also, but also it's not a magic transporter. They're boats. They're not that fast. It's in Indonesia. To get to Korea will take a week, but I didn't get that. You didn't let me get that word in edgewise before you said you had a tea time. And nobody wanted to be the guy to call Trump during the Gulf and say, it's going to take a week. So then the next thing you know, he's finished golfing and talking to a reporter and says, we're totally destroying Korea. I have 50 million battleship Galacticas off of the coast, an armada, if you will. And, he thought it was done because he said do it.
Because he said do it.
That's the best I can come up with by way of explanation, and no one wanted to say, it's not how it works.
Sorry, Mr. President. No,
yes.
Really. But senior military command backing him up?
I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Well, it is steaming towards Korea. That was the big phrase. It's steaming. We haven't been steaming in a long time.
Lord.
They could create more coal jobs by having more coal-fired aircraft carriers, though. We should look into that.
Well, and there's a segue.
Yeah.
Speaking of coal.
Okay. How about that?
Remember the retired coal miners' health benefits that Joe Manchin made a fight last December when we were trying to do a continuing resolution to keep government open? The continuing resolution that did pass because Joe Manchin got a promise from Mitch McConnell and from the incoming administration that they would work to make benefits for coal miners permanent. Okay. So Joe Manchin didn't filibuster it. He didn't stop it from passing. And we have that continuing resolution running out on April 28th.
Okay.
Which is next week.
Oh, yes, right. Good point. That's how numbers work. Wow.
And now House Republicans are saying, yeah, that wasn't our promise. Paul Ryan didn't say he would make coal miners' benefits permanent.
Oh.
So yeah, we're gonna maybe do a 20-month extension.
And they're happy about that, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, no.
No, wow. Wow, that's weird.
So here's another government shutdown threat. This time over trying to do the right thing. Trying to get folks benefits that have been promised to them. And this time it doesn't appear that Joe Manchin is on his own. Rob Portman, Republican from Ohio, has made some noises that he would support Manchin in this.
Okay.
Shelley Mercapito, I got her name right this time,
Okay.
is also with him, although whether she would go so far as to vote against a government funding bill if a permanent fix isn't in there is not clear. But he also has Sherrod Brown.
Okay.
So
Ohio in big
the
for this too.
Senate wants to do this. Whether Mitch McConnell wants to keep his promise, you never know because it's Mitch McConnell.
True. Are there any coal mines in Kentucky?
Gee.
Does he know that?
Does Mitch McConnell
Yeah.
really care what happens in Kentucky?
I guess not. He doesn't look like a coal miner.
Nah, he hops up on a stage and holds up a rifle and figures he's taking care of Kentucky.
I guess so. Now, meanwhile, here's a picture of Joe Manchin. He's not even wearing a jacket, by God.
And
It's
he's
like
got
he's
his
in a
shirt
coal
sleeves
mine.
rolled up.
Yes. So, he's campaigning the right way. All right. It's
There he
interesting,
is
man.
at a rally.
Yep. Keep the promise.
Where we've got the Boilermen supporting the United Mine Workers. You've got the mine workers. This was last fall when he was attempting to try to get those permanent benefits. Yeah, still a fight.
Well, it's good to see so many folks out in favor of government benefits for themselves, I guess.
Yes.
I have the feeling that a few of these people might have been at some other protests recently, though. Perhaps
chances are pretty good, yeah.
Protesting federal government benefits for other people.
Yeah, particularly since they're like coal miners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They occupy a strange niche. Luckily, there aren't a whole lot of them.
They certainly do, and they certainly don't seem to be bothered by the ironies.
No.
In the niche that they inhabit.
Okay, well.
But,
economic anxiety.
They don't get their health benefits. Maybe they'll rethink how they voted?
It's always possible.
Maybe?
I mean, they seem to see the value of unions.
They seem to.
So, maybe. There's always hope.
Here's one of the things, though, that Mitch McConnell might be thinking about in this fight and might be pushing Paul Ryan a little harder on. He doesn't want Joe Manchin to be a hero back home.
Okay.
Because Joe Manchin is probably the most vulnerable of the 2018 class of Democrats.
I see. Yeah. So they got to find a way to placate either find a way to placate coal miners without making Joe Manchin look like he did anything, which would be really difficult to do, or screw all of them, but make the coal miners think that it was genius somehow or populism to screw them.
Yeah. So that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that's a tall order, but I think they could rise to that challenge somehow.
There are a few other things Democrats, though, are threatening shutdown over. And it's interesting to have Democrats in the position of threatening shutdown.
Yes.
And it's always funny how Republicans, when they're threatening it, it's to take stuff away from people. But when Democrats do it, it's trying to give stuff to people.
That is odd.
Funny.
Yeah. Well, where are people in all this? Why don't they vote?
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Good question. The other thing Democrats are threatening shutdown over is the cost sharing reimbursement to health insurance companies that Donald Trump says he's willing to end in order to force Democrats to come to the table and negotiate repealing Obamacare with him.
Yeah. He's not going to pay the federal portion, the federal subsidies to insurers who offer lower rates to low-income buyers? Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So everyone will then be mad at Democrats. I don't understand that part.
How his mind works to think he can do all of this stuff and people will automatically blame the Democrats. I don't know. Maybe he's looking at past history.
Yeah, right. Sure. Everyone blames Democrats anyway. I suppose it's possible that this. I mean, I can't explain it. It's ridiculous, but it has happened. So maybe it'll happen again.
But it makes it harder when you're saying, I am going to do this thing that will hurt you, and then you are going to blame the other guy for doing it.
Yes. He has said, I don't want to, so that's probably all the cover he needs. Well, he said he didn't want to.
Yeah.
But he did. Yeah,
but he did.
But he didn't want to. Oh, well.
Nevertheless, he persisted.
Right. It must be the Democrats who also don't want to. Now they do want to. No. All right. Well, now, aren't they, as I understand, they're clinging to the old claim that it would be okay to not pay them because technically they're illegal and or unconstitutional anyway because we think Obamacare.
Well, they had one judge who agreed with them on that.
Yeah, but when was that? And what's the status of that?
That was appealed by the Obama administration. Mm-hmm. The judge stayed her decision, and we're just in a strange limbo now. Mm-hmm. Because both the House and the Trump administration sort of put a hold on everything and asked the judge to continue her stay while they decided what they were going to do. Uh-huh. And this is extremely disturbing for the insurance companies, as you can imagine.
Yes, not getting paid. They hate that.
Yeah. And even the Chamber of Commerce has weighed in, telling Republicans, you gotta do this. You gotta pay this money.
Do you remember the case name? I don't.
It was Boehner, I think.
That guy. All right.
Yeah, he brought the suit. Was it House of Representatives versus Obama? I am not sure.
That would make it easy to remember. Well, in theory, it would make it easy to remember. It hasn't worked so far, but
yeah.
I just I realized. Okay, well, I know, and I just sort of let it slide in reading about it. Like, oh yeah, sure. I don't really remember, but I'm sure there was that case because they've sued about everything.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting case. This was what Boehner brought in, it was in 2012? When he was trying to avoid yet another government shutdown threat from the Freedom Caucus over Obamacare funding.
Okay.
Over Obamacare repeal. So Boehner said, all right, instead of doing that, let's do this. Let's sue Barack Obama and the administration for paying out this money that we did not specifically appropriate.
Okay.
And a lot of folks looked at that and said, yeah, good luck, Boehner, finding a judge who is going to get in the middle of a dispute between the other two branches when there are so many other remedies for you to fix this, like going in and tweaking the law. But they found a judge. They found Rosemary Collyer, a George W. Bush appointee.
Okay.
Who said, Congress, I'm looking at a Politico story now. House GOP wins Obamacare lawsuit. Congress is the only source for such an appropriation. and no money can be spent without one, said Collier.
Okay.
So this is where we're in hold.
All right. Well, I'll have to take a look at that article.
Okay, it was House v. Burwell.
Ah, okay. That one at least rings a bell, but let's see. And Politico, huh? I'm going to take a look at that one, but just sort of, we'll make that off-air reading. But yeah, I mean, okay. So the status of the case, though, is that the stay is, or the order is stayed. The
order is stayed, pending appeal by the Obama administration, but now it's the Trump administration, and Trump has to figure out what to do. And meanwhile, these payments have to go out, like now.
So the excuse would be, well, I'm not sending the payment because this judge said we didn't have to, even though she then stayed it, but we've taken over the defense of Obamacare, ironically, and we could just, I guess they could just say, well, they're looking for a way to drop it and have the judge then say, well, okay, then I will remove the stay. But then, of course, if they drop the suit,
the ruling then stands.
I don't know if they could leave the order in
constitutional.
I guess you'd have to engineer a hell of a way of exiting the case, not just dropping it. Because if you drop
I
it,
have no idea how they can exit this case. I have no idea how they can get another judge to say, no, it's all right. They can do this.
So it would be an interesting excuse for him to try to lean on that. The judge said that this was unconstitutional. Well, the last thing the judge said was you got to go ahead and pay anyway.
Right.
Oh, but
so can we just continue with that stay forever?
I guess as long as the case is a live controversy but not proceeding, then yes. And I guess that's what they're just going to leave it there because they can't figure out what else to do with it. Because I suppose going forward with it always holds out the risk of an appeals court saying, no, Collier's wrong. I don't know what district they're in or what.
I'm not sure which one she's in.
It would go to the D.C. Circuit Court of
Appeals. It would go to the D.C. Circuit,
That would not be a good place for them at the moment. Thanks to
Merrick Garland would. Yeah.
You know what? I was busy, but I can free myself up for this case.
Yeah.
As chief. I think I'll take this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, is he a vindictive guy? He's not supposed to be.
He doesn't seem like a vindictive guy. He seems like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, we should put him on the Supreme Court.
This would be extremely challenging for even the nicest guy in the world.
And you could draw a panel, but, then if they somehow drew a 3-judge panel that upheld the lower court, I think you'd see pretty quickly an en banc appeal. Although, who would make it, I have no idea, because the Trump administration wouldn't. That'd be interesting, now that I think about it. If they somehow drew a 3-judge panel that, whether 2-1 or however they would uphold the lower court, the Trump administration wouldn't have any interest in appealing that decision.
Right.
And neither would the House, I assume.
Except for the fact that politically this is going to be a disaster for them because this is big enough to really undermine Obamacare and to really make a lot of people lose their health insurance.
That would be hilarious if the plaintiff eventually said, wait a minute, we won? What? We appeal.
Yeah.
We can't have this. This is crazy.
This is a nightmare for them. And once again, you've got the Chamber of Commerce saying, you've got to pay this money. You have all of the health insurance industry saying, you've got to pay this money. You have all of the providers, the American Medical Association, the Hospital Association, everybody saying, you got to pay this money.
I think they should pay the money.
I think they should pay the money, but then they still have this problem of a decision saying they can't pay this money.
That is weird.
Except that decision is stayed, so as long as that stay, can a stay be indefinitely enacted?
I guess. Sure.
Can the stay be there until we have a Democratic Congress and White House?
Yeah, I guess it could.
Fixes this part of the law.
I'd have to take a look at the terms
it
of
would
it.
have been an easy fix.
No. This is it's quite I'm glad you brought this up because this is a hell of a procedural issue, if nothing else. But also could collapse a sixth of the economy. I guess I'll concede that.
Yeah.
There's also another reason.
And could cause a government shutdown.
On to boot, right.
Yeah.
And a great point, by the way, great historical point that this all started in the last go-round of government shutdown.
With the resigned House Speaker.
Trying to placate the same idiots who caught the car now.
Yeah.
Holy cow. What a story. Again, just a piece, all of a piece with the ongoing storyline of, as we put it a couple of weeks ago, that under the Obama administration, the Republicans voted 60 times to repeal Obamacare, and under the Trump administration, they haven't been able to manage a single repeal vote. They're still stuck on that one because they realize all of a sudden, hey, we're going to ruin everything. We promised we would, but I don't know if I want to keep that promise.
Yep.
Hey, politics. It's weird.
Hey, politics.
That's
and it doesn't get weirder than this.
No. Wow.
But even all the way back to our filibuster fights and the agreement that was made that allowed Collier under the Bush administration to become a federal judge.
Yeah. History. It's weird. Like politics. What a story. Okay, well, we've woven together a hell of a narrative here.
Practice.
All right. Well, it's a good way to end, I guess, because we have to, even if it's a terrible way. So we'll just say it's a good one.
It's that time.
And get the hell out of here. How about that? Okay. Well, thanks for puzzling out that story with me. I don't know if that's where we're going to end up regardless, but that's what makes live radio with you so interesting, Joan.
Well, I'm glad I was here for it.
Me too, because it would have sounded weird with me doing your voice. I don't think I have that one in my repertoire. Thanks very much, though.
Pretty Trump, but I did, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Joan sounds just like Trump. That's so weird. Idaho is huge, so I don't know. I have to work on something for you. Thank you very much for coming by and telling us that fascinating story. Now I feel like we should expand on that a little bit. But when you're back with us again next week, is Congress back? This is the second week.
Maybe I'll have some time on Friday.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Then. That would be fantastic. We'll look to follow up with you.
I'll pencil you in.
Okay, thanks very much. Joan McCarter, senior political writer, on her way back to cover the absent Congress, but all sorts of other things today as well. Look forward to speaking to you again next week, Joan.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care. All right, and let me wrap up quick here and let you know what's coming up next on the After Show with Wink and Justice. I've got about 20 seconds to do this. U.S. drug wholesaler McKesson Medical Surgical Incorporated sues Arkansas for fraud and how it obtained the company's banned lethal injection drugs. Can you believe what's going on with the executions down there in Arkansas? Unbelievable. Much more, of course. Then I'll try and squeeze some of that in after this.
From Daily Kos Radio on networksradio.com. You have been listening to the Kagro in the Morning Show
with David Waldman.
Wow, I left a lot here. The private prison industry's pay-to-play strategy is a lucrative success under the Trump administration. You probably guessed that. And how about this? Trump's missile attack on Syria, justified with, oh my God, fake intelligence. All of this plus the last half visit with Angela Marks coming up next on the After Show with Wink and Justice.